Hey YouTube, Rambling Nerd here. Ever since quarantine kicked off, fermenting and fermented hot sauces have been super popular, but I haven't seen many videos go into detail on how to actually turn your fermented peppers into a sauce. So here's how I do it. First things first, I'm making a green hot sauce here, so I've fermented these jalapenos for about 3 weeks with the Noma method. There's already a ton of great videos on this, but I've linked Ethan Schlabowski's video in the description. It's a fantastic primer on lacto fermentation as a whole. Next, we'll drain the peppers. With a big jar like this, I like to put a strainer over the top instead of pouring the peppers out into it. If you give the jar a little bit of a shake and pour without hesitation, you can usually get a lot of the seeds out, which I find kind of helps take a bit of the bitterness out of the finished sauce. Don't worry about the rest of them though, it's just whatever we can get out. Just whatever you do, don't drain it into the sink. We'll need this brine later. The thing is, jalapenos aren't really hot enough on their own for a hot sauce, so I'm going to use 4 habanero peppers to enforce the heat level I'm looking for. Go ahead and give them a little bit of a char in a broiler, skillet, whatever you have. Just make sure to get some deep dark color on the pepper's surface without cooking them too much inside. And with that, it's off to the blender. The peppers can be a bit resistant coming out of the jar, which is another reason I like to drain them through the strainer instead of into one. But we're going to go ahead and pulse this, gently pressing them down, being very careful to only blend the peppers here until it can churn and turn over on its own. And unless you have a Vitamix or some other nice blender, make sure you give your blender a bit of a break every few minutes, especially if it's starting to heat up on the sides or you can smell a faint plastic smell. You don't want to be heading out to the store at 10 at night just to get back to where you started. It's better to go grab a fresh beer and hang out a minute. And after a minute, if you can't get it churning after it's all turned into a paste and there's no whole pepper pieces still kicking around, just add a dash of that brine, just a tablespoon, just about that much, and you can see it all start to free up and turn over. It only takes a little bit to turn your hot sauce into a salty pepper water. You'll want to see it churning about like this. And here go my charred habaneros, right on in. I've already added some lime juice, a little cumin, garlic powder, and paprika, but this is your opportunity to get creative. Just be sure to use a light hand, we don't want to overpower the peppers. And I'm going to roughly chop some leaves off of some fresh cilantro and get that tossed in there too. And that's everything blended. All that's left to do now is strain and bottle, though I warn you, straining is easily the most tedious part. You'll need to use a large spoon and press the pepper paste into a mesh strainer, squeezing out all the juice you can get. And a quick side note, I'd recommend a better than dollar store strainer for this. You'll be pressing on it with a bit of force for quite a while, and it'd be super frustrating to have the screen break and you punch through it and you hit the edge of the bowl and send a ton of hot sauce all over the kitchen. Trust me, you want a decent strainer for this. Just keep pressing until it starts to clump up, like that. There. When it can easily be pulled into a ball and doesn't give up any more juice when pressed, go ahead and move your pepper paste ball into some type of storage. By the way, this keeps for weeks in the fridge and is probably the single best thing to happen to my chicken tacos since raw tortillas, but don't let that stop you from putting it in pot roast, eggs, really whatever you can think of. You should also think about what you'd like to test your new hot sauce on. Pizza rolls? Hot wings? I'm gonna throw some decent chicken strips in the toaster oven. The last thing we need to do is to go ahead and pour our precious hot sauce all over the counter, or in the bottle if you want. These are called woozy bottles, by the way. I love them for their classic shape, but don't forget to get the highly suggestive orifice reducers for that dropper tip effect, otherwise you'll just be pouring glugs of hot sauce. Go ahead and get those capped up, and this is ready to serve immediately.